This is a Sandy Boy Productions podcast.
Welcome to Finish Lines and Milestones, a podcast celebrating the everyday runner. I'm your host, Allie Brettnacher, and if you run, you are a runner, and every runner has a story. Join me every Friday as I share these stories, and we celebrate finish lines and milestones together. This week, I'm interviewing Mike Brydges, who is Mike Runs Marathons on Instagram. But before I get to Mike, I wanted to talk about the downhill Boston qualifying drama, because if you don't already know this, if you're new to listening to this because of Mike, I am based in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we have the Indianapolis Monumental Marathon on November 8th this year, and we are a top-rated non-net downhill Boston qualifier marathon. So I'm just saying, if you're really bummed and you want to run a fast marathon, come see us in Indianapolis in the fall. We will sell out this year for sure. So if you're not decided on your fall marathon, come do that. And I'm going to get judged for this, but I've run the very downhill Big Cottonwood Marathon or half marathon out in Salt Lake City. And totally, when I found out it was a Boston qualifying course, I was like, oh, I'm going to come back here and run my BQ. I need all the help I can get. And that race was actually my PR for a while, which felt like cheating. And so I totally understand why the BAA is trying to level the playing field, but if they could just stop changing things, that would be cool. Because I just want to be able to set the goal, be able to see what it is, and go get it, versus being like, I don't know. But I'm just chasing my best. So if I don't get there, that's cool. I will still be at my very best. And then I also wanted to mention my treadmill running this week. It's so hot. It's gotten really humid in Indiana, and I know I shouldn't complain because it was just winter, but I ended up running 9 miles on my treadmill this week because I wanted to avoid the heat and humidity. And I put the question out there to ask how far people have run on the treadmill. And so I just had to shout out my friend Kimberly, because she told me she's run not one, but 2 ultra marathons. That's 31.1 miles on her treadmill. And she told me one of those times she was pregnant. So anyway, if you think running a few miles on the treadmill is hard, just think about that. And there were a ton of other people who have done 20 milers. And, you know, for me, I've never done a 20 miler on the tread, but I've done in the double digits. I can't remember exactly how far, but I am a treadmill runner. I love my treadmill, especially love watching the new season of Ginny and Georgia on Netflix. So you'll find me on my treadmill a lot this summer, probably, as I gear up training for the Marine Corps Marathon in late October. So now let's get to Mike. So Mike Brydges and I met via Instagram, as many of my guests and I have. He lives in New York, and we talk a lot about that, the New York races he's done. He's done all of them, I think, pretty much. So he kind of gives us the inside scoop about that for people who are not from New York. And he is chasing his 6-star medal for the second time. Not once, but twice. When he finished the first time, he's like, well, now what? And just decided, oh, I'll do it again. So we're following him now on his journey in round 2. So again, make sure you go follow his journey. I also love how he is dedicated to meeting the everyday runner, sharing everyday runner stories. Obviously, if you're here, you like that too. So again, be sure to check out his Instagram and the stuff he's doing over there. He also, in his profile, this is what sold me on Mike. I was like, he is the Anti-Matt Choi. That's what he said. And if you don't know who Matt Choi is, he's the running influencer that had e-bikes during the New York City Marathon, and he's done other stuff like that. Like, no shade to influencers, but like when you're putting other runners in danger so that you can create content, that's just not what it's about. So that's why I really liked Mike, and I'm so happy that I finally got to sit down with him and get to know him, and I know that you are going to be really inspired by this conversation with Mike Brydges. Hey Mike, how's it going?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing all right. I am so glad you're finally here.
Me too. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, and anybody who doesn't know you or follow your journey yet, you are Mike Runs Marathons on Instagram, which I love.
Yeah, I went through like 3 or 4 different names, and then I'm pretty sure it came to me like on a run. I came back, I was talking to my wife, I was like, I think I found my name, Mike Runs Marathons. And I was like, I guarantee you someone has that name.
Yeah.
And then I typed it in, I was like, oh, the email address is taken, but the username was not. So I was like, okay, cool. I got lucky with that one.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised about that. When did you get on Instagram for running in particular?
Probably during the pandemic. I went through like 2 different names, and I kind of like posted here and there, but it was mostly just like, here's what I did today with my run. And that was kind of it.
Yeah. And now So much content. You're telling runner stories, which is so cool.
I know. I have to give a shout out to my wife because I was supposed to try to start doing content last year, but then like somehow the year just flew by and I was like, oh, I guess I can't start in 2024. So I was like, I think I'm going to start 2025, and my wife was like, do it. So I kind of forced myself to start by buying like equipment that I had to make myself be like, yeah, it's a significant amount of money, but you are going to be using it. And if you don't use it, then you waste your money.
Right. So it's an incentive not to waste your money.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I feel that.
I'm so grateful for what has happened in my life over the last 5 months with running because I never thought that people would listen to what I had to say.
Tell me about it.
I thought it was just like I throw it out in the ethos and just like if people catch it, like that's wonderful. But to have people, message me and tell me that I inspire them or tell me their own stories, it's just wild. I mean, I was able to do a shakeout run before the Tokyo Marathon, which if you had said that to me at any point in my life, I would have said you were nuts.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I had started just doing content probably for about 2 months, and I was like, hey, let me just put a Google form together. If anybody wants to join, they can. I mean, it was very small. It was supposed to be like 3 or 4 people, but only two showed up. But listen,
Doesn't
one
matter.
one person makes a difference. So,
Hmm.
it was, I just remember we were running around the Imperial Palace, and I remember doing it. We were talking and just thinking the entire time, like, how is this my life? Like, how is this real life? Like, I'm in Japan. I've met up with people who follow me on social media from around the country, and somehow we are running around this like incredibly historical, distinctive building that, yeah, like even now it just is like, oh my God.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah, it has to feel like a dream. Okay, so there's so much that we have to get into during this conversation because even though you've been running since, 2018, 2019, you've packed a lot into that short, long amount of time. I mean, I guess it's all relative, right? Because it's
Yeah.
still been years that you've been doing this, but you've accomplished so much in such a short amount of time. So tell the people where you are from and
Yeah.
where I'm talking to you from.
So I grew up in South Jersey near Philly. I lived here until I was 18, and then I moved to New York City for college and lived there for 17 years. And then
Wow.
recently moved back in 2022, went through my grandma at the time was very sick. She unfortunately passed away, but we moved down here. My then fiance, we moved down here to be closer to her during everything. And plus, New York City just got really, really expensive. And my wife had always wanted to live in New York City, and it's just like this weird thing. Like COVID hit, and then we were doing long distance for about a year and a half, and then I decided to move to Florida to be near her and her family. Lived there for about 8 months, and then I got a job up in New York City again. And she was like, "Hey, I've always wanted to live in New York City. Let's go try it out." And she hated it. So after the first year of our lease and living there, we were like, you know what? For her sanity, I was like, let's get out of here. Plus, in my opinion, New York City has changed so much since the pandemic that I just like I can't even recognize it anymore. So I still go up there for races. I go up there to see my friends, but it's nice to be able to visit, but be able to leave.
Yeah. So I'm from Indiana. So if you can
Mm.
imagine like me coming to New York, it's obviously very different from where I live. I live in the suburbs of Indianapolis, and it's like exactly like you would picture suburbia. Like that is where I live. And I don't think I've been to New York City since before the pandemic. The last time I was in the city would have been for the 2019 New York City Marathon. I spectated that year.
Okay.
And for some friends that had cheered me on the year prior. And I think that's the last time. So I was there like right before the pandemic, I guess. But then I haven't been back, which is so sad. I need to take my kids there.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's a beautiful city, but it's got, in my opinion, so many more issues now that need to be worked out.
So, okay. So that's how you got to run Brooklyn was as we're recording this. Brooklyn was last weekend, right?
Yes, yes.
I was like, I feel like it was just yesterday and I don't know. So how was that race for you?
It was a struggle. So the day before, I had traveled the week prior for work. I was in Georgia, and I
Okay.
had flown up to New York to go get my bib, and I was going to go finish working at our office, and got an Uber. And I was like, okay, so I will take my Uber to downtown Brooklyn, pick up my bib, and then Uber again up to the office. And on our way there, my Uber driver got into an accident, And
What? That's
yeah,
wild.
yeah, so 3-car pile up. It was wonderful. And
Great.
I was actually kind of like lying down. I had my seatbelt on, but I was lying down, like trying to take a nap because I had woken up very early and was very tired. And so I heard that beeping sound that you get when you get too close to a car.
Oh,
And I noticed that it wasn't stopping. And I was like, we're about to hit something. And so I braced, and what should have taken me about 45 minutes took me 6 hours just to get to downtown Brooklyn from JFK, which was just like insane. I had to roll my suitcase, probably 30 blocks in order to get to the subway to then go up. And that night, so I got my bib, and that night I started to feel like really weird. I got really bad migraine. I started to feel really dizzy. I started to feel really like weak.
oh,
Woke up the next day. I only got like 2 hours of sleep. And so I woke up the next day for the Brooklyn half and felt a little nauseous. And I was like, okay, let me do like my like traditional pre-race routine that I have. Thought that might help. It kind of did, but not really. I knew something was wrong when I tried to take one of my Martin gels before the race and like gagged. So I got to mile 4. We were in Prospect Park going around it before you head all the way down to Coney Island. And I got about a quarter way up, and I felt like I was just going to throw up everywhere. I was so nauseous. I felt so sick, and I ended up having to walk for a little bit. I was texting my wife. I was like, I don't know if I'm able to do this. I think I might DNF. I've never DNF'd a race before.
yeah.
And I was like, I think what might happen is I'll get to the top of Prospect Park. Everybody will go around it. I'll just keep going and I'll leave. But then I kind of like was trying to bargain with myself. I was like, okay, let's see how you feel at the bottom of Prospect Park, get around the loop and see how it is. And by the time I got down, the humidity that was like 96% had dropped a little bit, and there was a draft. So I started to feel a little better. I had to walk a little bit more towards the middle part of the race, but I was able to finish. Still in a decent time. I missed my goal time by like 8 minutes, I think. But yeah, it was a struggle. I had struggled with that, and then the week before I had done a 10-mile race in Philly, and same thing. The humidity hit me real bad. Mile 3, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I still finished. And this is when I'm starting to recognize and remind myself that this is when the hard part starts for me with running, especially with training for fall marathons. It's the humidity. I take a medication that makes me overheat faster. So,
Oh,
and I used to run with water, but now I don't. I don't have enough hands because I don't wear a belt anymore. I carry my phone in my hand, and it can be a struggle sometimes. But yeah, I finished at least.
yeah. What was the Philly 10 miler? Is that the big 10 miler they have there? Because I know there's
Yeah,
one that's like really
the
big.
the Broad Street Run. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Because I have a friend, a running friend actually, who lives in Philly.
Okay.
So yeah, shout out Kim if you're listening. But man, I can't believe you got in a car accident, slept 2 hours, and then still did a race. That's painful, man. Congrats on finishing, because it's easy just to stop.
It was a struggle, and I had several people online yell at me, being like, a couple weeks prior to that, I had run Boston. I had a kidney stone.
Oh my God. I really need to hear this story because I could not believe this.
Yeah, it was on a yeah, Boston was on a Monday. I was in the hospital that Friday before, because I was like, okay, I definitely know that I have one. I have a history of them. And so we went to the ER. They did a CAT scan. They're like, well, good news. The worst part's over. It's almost out. You'll be fine. I was like, great. I should pass it before the marathon. Kept checking, and I was like, maybe I missed it. Maybe it did come out. I don't know. Ran the marathon, was fine. And then I came home Tuesday, and that night I started to get pain, and I had my wife take me to the hospital, and they were like, okay, let's do another CAT scan. And they were like, the kidney stone is stuck. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
wonderful. So they were like, we have to keep you here, and we have to do
Oh
stuff.
no.
And I was like, oh my God. So I had taken off 2 days already for the marathon. I had to take the rest of the week off for the surgery. I'm not sure. I'm sure some people will know what this is, but they had to install a stent into my kidney, which is essentially a giant metal tube that goes from your kidney out of you. It is very painful. And I got it taken out Tuesday before the Broad Street Run. And then I had the Broad Street Run. So there was that. And then there was I found that I had a concussion because I did go to the ER when I got back from
I was going to ask you that because it seems like something was off for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had a concussion from that. So I had those two things happen like 1 week after another. And I'm happy that this week there was no health issue. So
Yeah, geez, Mike. Just one of those things is a ton to go through, let alone like two in that short amount of time.
yeah, yeah. But I mean,
Golly.
I always tell myself I've been through worse, so I can get through that.
Right. Yeah. What do you do for your day job, by the way?
So I'm a consultant.
Okay.
I work for a company primarily we do commercial consulting, but I work with government consulting. So I help states with a variety of different issues they might be facing.
So you travel a lot for work then, or just sometimes, or?
Sometimes, usually once a month.
Okay. Okay.
It depends on the project that I'm working on.
Gotcha. And so let's go back again to when you started running in the first place.
Mhm.
So where were you living at the time that you started running?
I was living in Queens in New York.
Okay.
I like telling this story because a lot of people, as I tell the story, they're like, and then this, because it was just like one cascade of issues after the other. So in February 2018, I was going through really bad mental health issues. I was trying to find, the right medication to help me, and it just kind of we weren't finding it. And I got put on one medication that ended up causing me to be essentially paranoid. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating. And that culminated in me trying to take my life. In February, I was in the hospital for a couple days because of that. And about a month later, after getting out of that, my girlfriend at the time, we'd been together for about 3 years, she broke up with me, saying that what I had gone through was too much for her, which I respect and I understand. It's if I was in her position, I would kind of feel the same way in a sense. But I was also in like really intensive therapy at the time, going like 3 times a week, including like group therapy. And I finally decided, that this was going to be like the time where I was going to start taking that very seriously and figuring out my mental health issues and trying to solve them. And then, so that started to work very gradually, very slowly. And then April of 2018, I lost my great uncle, my grandfather's brother. I grew up in a single mother household. I don't know who my dad is. And so I've been lucky enough to have my grandpa and him as kind of my father figures. And he was one of the nicest men I've ever met. He was a big advocate for mental health. He had bipolar, and so he was the first person to ever tell me, it's okay to have a mental health issue. You just have to get it in check and take care of it, and you'll be okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's just something that we just have to deal with. And so it was really refreshing to hear him say that to me. And so when I lost him, it really hurt me because I couldn't go to his funeral, and I had not seen him in a couple years. So that was really heartbreaking. And my grandpa is a very, very stoic man. And I remember calling him after he lost him, and they did everything together. They went on trips together. That he was essentially the only sibling that he spoke to, and he had 5 brothers and 4 sisters.
Jeez.
And so I remember calling him, and he couldn't even speak. He was just sobbing, and I was just I was broken. And then a month after that, kind of in conjunction, I found out that I had an illness that needed to be taken care of kind of immediately, or else it would have culminated in cancer. And so essentially for the rest of 2018, I had to have surgeries about every 2 weeks to kind of stave this off. And the worst part was that I had one big surgery in June, which was just like the worst thing probably I've ever had in my life. But then the rest of the year, I had to have surgeries before work. And so I would go 7 in the morning to the doctor. He would do the procedure, and then I would go to work and have to act like everything was fine. And then I also decided to finally go see a primary doctor because I started to get really bad migraines to the point where I would throw up. And it got really bad. And so I went to go see him, and we found out that my blood pressure was just like abysmally high. It was like 180, 190 over like 90 over 100, or over 90 at 100 or something like that. And it was to the point where he was like, if you don't start doing something, you're going to have a massive stroke or a massive heart attack. And strokes run on the male side of my family.
That's scary.
And so I took kind of all of those events together to be like, okay, I need to do something that's going to help me lose weight and get healthier. I'm not trying to shout and like yell at anybody about their weight, but like my doctor, I'm happy he was very like direct with me because it's what I needed. And so I started to think about what I could do, and I had tried running like, I don't know, maybe 8, 9 years before that, but it was like I'd run around my block and be just like destroyed by the end. And so I went to the gym and I looked around and I was very self-conscious at the time. So I was like, I'm not going to the weights. I don't want to be around all these people that have all these muscles that I don't have and feel judged, and I don't want to look at myself in the mirror. And so I gravitated towards running, and I got on the treadmill for the first time, and I never forget this. Whenever you hit start on the treadmill, it would just start for 20 minutes. And I made it a goal that I wanted to be able to run those 20 minutes without stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And at the first, it was terrible. I hated it. I was really, really struggling. I would have to run, walk. My pace was very, very slow. But eventually, I got to that 20 minutes and I felt a really great sense of accomplishment. And I also realized while running that I started to get this mental clarity that I never really got anywhere else. I felt like this sense of calmness, kind of everything that was like in my head that was just like yelling at me or just wouldn't be quiet, just finally just like died down. And I realized, maybe this is what I can do to de-stress. And it kind of escalated from there. I mean, I ended up, I didn't run outside. It was also the
I was
winter.
going to ask you if you remembered your first outdoor run after this
My,
point, but it was just
yes,
winter.
yeah.
Yeah.
My first outdoor run was in 2019 in,
Okay.
I want to say May. I started running in like August, September of 2018. So like that whole time period was inside.
Okay. And it was at a gym where other people were,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I ran like my first 5K, I ran my first 10K. I may have run my first 15K on the treadmill. And my biggest fear was like, I'm running on a treadmill, so it's helping me go forward. If I go outside and I have to put my own effort in, am I going to be slower?
Mm.
Um, and I remember going outside for the first time and running and being very happy because it wasn't that much of a difference. And at the time, I hate the cold. I have Raynaud's, so my hands and my feet are always cold. And during the winter, they almost freeze solid and they hurt,
Mm.
even if I wear gloves. And so that was my like rationale for running inside. And after running outside, I was like, I really like this. And so I got very lucky that my therapy I was going to was right by Central Park. So I would
Mm.
finish work, go to therapy, go to the gym that was around the corner, pack my stuff up, and then just go run in Central Park. And I ran in Central Park. Oh my God, I don't even know how many times for over the next like 2 years. And I didn't want to run a marathon at all. I just wanted to be able to get fit and stay healthy. And I had, well, I don't know if it was that winter. I found out about a 5K that was happening with NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and decided to run that and raise money for them. And it was an excellent experience. I actually think that was the last one they ever did because they think after that they just transitioned to a walk. But after doing that, I was like, I've never really been a competitive person, never done sports before, but running that race, I remember like seeing people and be like, can I pass them? I want to beat them. Can I get to the finish line before they can? And so I kind of got bit by like the race bug, but I didn't know what I wanted to do because I didn't know anything about like New York Road Runners. I didn't know about what's it called, NYC races or NYC runs or any other organization that held races in the city. I just knew that it was a lot of fun. And I had a friend whose best friend ran New York actually in 2018. And in 2019, it was probably like probably April, May. I was like, you know what? I think I want to try to qualify for the New York City Marathon by doing their 9+1 program. And I had a friend tell me, and this is what I have to shout out to Darren. He's the one who sparked my marathon
Mhm.
running. He said, "You don't have enough time to qualify." And so I signed up for 9 races and started in June, finished the first week of October, and was qualified for 2020 and obviously got canceled. So I ran it in 2021 and that started everything.
So, so the 9+1 for New York City Roadrunners, you do 9 of their races and then you get into New York. Am I understanding that
Yeah,
right?
you have to do 9 of their races and then volunteer at one.
Okay. That's crazy. That's kind of cool though to have that opportunity. especially when you live close enough to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the benefits of living in New York.
Right. Yeah. I want to go back to kind of the beginning of what we were just going through, because that was a lot. That's a lot that you've gone through. And so up until the point in 2018, like, had you dealt with mental health, like looking back now, like what you know now, like had you struggled with your mental health for a long time?
Yes. Yeah. I've had depression since fifth grade. I know exactly when I knew I became depressed because I was yelling at myself and calling myself an idiot when I was in fifth grade. And I didn't really start taking it seriously until my great uncle's son, he took his life. And so I realized, I don't want to end up like him. So I started to go to therapy and I started to try to find a psychiatrist that would help me. And it was a struggle. I don't really remember most of my 20s because of how depressed I was. And I'm happy that, I ended up finding a therapist who understood my needs and was able to find me someone who would be able to help me. And I contribute a lot of my healing with my mental health to the therapy program that I was in, and the therapist that helped me and the psychiatrist that helped me, because they saw me at my lowest. They were the ones that were there for me when I tried to take my life, and instead of, kind of pushing me out or not wanting to help me, they kind of wrapped their services around me and made sure that I was all right. But yeah, mental health has been a big struggle for me my entire life. It runs in my family. My mom has it. My brother has it. Pretty sure my grandfather has it. He doesn't talk about his feelings, but he gives off a lot of the signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and what people talk about more now, thankfully, is mental health in general. And then like also the medication side of things, because I've been on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication now for 4 years. And it's not an exact science too, like where you just go take a pill and you feel better. It's like, it has to be not just the meds, but what you're talking about, like having a therapist, having a psychiatrist perhaps. And then, also obviously you found running, which is great, but it's been an ongoing struggle for me. And I'm sure for many of people who are listening as well. Yeah. And so it's just like, like your great uncle said to you, you're not alone. You're not broken like this. I think probably more people than not like deal with anxiety and depression these days anyway.
Yeah, it's funny whenever I go to see a new psychiatrist now or talk to a new therapist, they ask me like, what's your medication history? And I'm like, well, if you can name an antidepressant, I've been on nearly every single thing that you can name of. And so whenever I tell them that, they're like, okay, so we can't try these.
Yeah, right. And it's like, I just got this, I don't know, this DNA test done. I forget what it's called, but it's like, it helps you look at what medicines might work better for you or which ones you should stay away from.
Oh, wow.
So I did that, and actually mine ended up not being that helpful because it's like, I don't really have negative reactions to many. So it just kind of confirmed what we've been trying, which is good.
Yeah.
But with all the side effects, it can tell you like, hey, you really shouldn't take this because it's probably going to give you some gnarly side effects.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think about, what you went through in February of 2018. Do they, like looking back, was it part of the meds you were on too? Because I know sometimes that can cause suicidal thoughts and then actions. I mean, that's just so scary.
Yeah, that I contribute a lot of it to the medication I was on at the time, because I started to get incredibly paranoid. I thought that, like, I lived in a studio apartment. You walked into my apartment, you could see everything. I thought that someone was going to come out of like my bathroom, which you can't get into my bathroom unless you're in my apartment.
Yeah.
I was afraid to open the windows because I thought someone would be staring back at me. Like it was terrifying. And one thing I will say actually that I forgot to mention is I remember when I did the act, I was lying on the ground and I kind of realized what I had done. And I heard this really, 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 really faint voice that, like, I tell myself, like, it wasn't mine. I don't know whose it was, but it wasn't mine. And all it said was not yet. And that is what made me get up. And
oh my gosh.
I like, I don't want to get graphic, but like I wrapped myself up in like a bunch of t-shirts and I Ubered to the hospital to to get help. But I don't think if I didn't hear that voice, I don't know where I would be today.
Are you, I mean, you didn't mention God. So does that mean, are you not religious at all, or are you?
I don't know what I am. I think that there's something when I was, if you had asked me when I was younger, I mean, I was going to become a deacon when I was a kid.
Wow. Okay.
But now I think I'm probably more spiritual than anything. I would say I probably lean more towards Buddhism than probably most other religions in terms of just the idea of trying to break the cycle of suffering and trying to, I don't want to say be kind because that's kind of with every religion, but just making sure that you're trying to help others in ways that will help them themselves help their own suffering.
Right. Right. Yeah. Man. And then, okay. Gosh, this is crazy. So then you ran New York
Mhm.
after that had to be so hard to have it canceled too. Like it's your first
Yeah.
marathon. You never thought you were going to run a marathon. Then you're like, okay, I've trained
Hmm.
for this. Do you remember, like, were you still hopeful it wasn't going to be canceled? Do you remember kind of that,
Yeah.
the days leading up to that?
I had seen New York Row Runners as the year progressed cancel their races, and so I was hopeful. I was like, maybe we'll have something by November that will be able to help us with COVID-19. But when they did cancel it, I was not surprised.
Right.
In fact, I was a little relieved because I was like, I'm not training as much as I should, and I don't know if I'll be able to do it. So I will say that I was a little happy that it was delayed, so I
Well,
got
that's
another
good.
year of training. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I know, I've talked to plenty of people who have had, big races canceled because of COVID. And it's just like, man.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for you, you just got an extra year
Yeah.
of
I
training.
mean, the benefit was that I got to do it the following year because I know that there are some races they just canceled and they just didn't do it
Oh,
again.
yeah. Right. Yeah.
Where
What a time.
I know, like for instance, in Boston in 2020, if you were a charity runner and you raised money for charity for 2020, you did not get into 2021.
Really? I did
Yeah.
not realize that.
Yeah. So
That's
you raised
insane.
all that money and you had to do it all over again for 2021.
Okay. What?
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't know that. I feel like that is so bad.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, great that, more money was raised for charity, but that is so hard to
Yeah.
raise that kind of money. I've done for New York City, I ran for Alex's Lemonade Stand,
Hmm.
but I wrote a check. I didn't fundraise. I was just like, you know what? This is the cost of doing this. My husband and I give every year. I'm like, we'll just use this as one of our gifts. But I know people who are, you're out there getting $5 and $10 from people to get to $15,000. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
crazy.
I had to raise 9,000 for Boston last year, so
Like,
it was not easy. Not easy.
yeah. Geez. Okay. So New York kind of kicked off your 6-star journey. When you ran New York, did you even know what the 6 stars, like Abbott World Majors, were?
I had heard something about this like 6-star world marathon major thing. I think I looked it up and I saw that it was like a bunch of marathons around the world, but I didn't really know what it was per se. All I knew is like I just wanted to finish New York for saying that I could finish New York. I
Mm-hmm.
used to work at the Apple store that's on Fifth Avenue, 59th Street. So a lot of the finishers would come in after the race because it finishes very close to there. And I would always just be in awe of all these people who would walk in just
Yeah. The
the
ponchos.
poncho on. I remember we had one girl actually walk down the stairs and then her legs gave out. Yeah, it was. I was like, that's badass right there. But yeah, I just wanted to be able to finish it and say that I could, and I liked it, but it was a massive struggle. I don't have as much now. I did not have as much knowledge as I have now when it comes to running with shoes and with hydration and with fueling. So I finished that race and my feet felt broken. Like the outer edges of my heel, or not my heel, my arches were so hurt, and I was in such pain that like I finished and I had to like lean up against the fence because I couldn't put any pressure on them.
Mm,
And came to find out that I needed to have orthotics in my shoes because I had flat feet and I didn't know.
right.
And once I got them, I was totally fine.
Wow.
But the rate. I remember I was calling my then girlfriend at the time, being like, I'm in so much pain. I don't know if I could do this. I hurt so bad. And my best friend Chris, who I contribute a lot of my growth to him because he's a former Marine and he's one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. He got on the phone and he said, "Don't be a bitch." So That's been our running line
That's
for
what you
years.
need.
And that's
Yeah.
what I needed. And I finished. And the pictures, I mean, if you look on my Instagram, the pictures from that race are like, I thought they were going to be very cathartic and just like show so much emotion, but instead they just look like me sobbing and in pain,
Yeah.
which like is true. But after finishing that race, I was just like, I can't believe I did this. And I think I want to do it again.
You thought that same day?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was
Especially
like
with the
that.
pain you were in.
Yeah.
How did you get from, so for people who have not done New York, it takes forever to get to the start and then it also takes forever to get out of the finish.
Oh my
So like,
God.
how did you end up like flagging down a wheelchair and saying, can somebody like wheel me out of here? Or were you literally just hobbled?
I did go to the med tent and they put ice on my feet and everything, but I ended up walking out.
Yeah. It takes forever to get out of there.
Yeah, that's the 27th mile. That's what
It
they
is
say.
like the 27th and 28th. I feel like so
It,
long. It
it's
feels like,
ridiculous.
yeah.
Like I did Boston, you just walk down, you make a right, and then you're just out. But with New York, you have to walk all the way around. And it was the 50th anniversary, so it was like so much security because of
Ah,
how prestigious it was for that day. And the I don't want to say that the security has gotten a little bit lax over the last couple of years, but it was. I remember my family telling me that they had to go through like 3 or 4 security checks because we bought seats for them to sit in the bleachers at the finish line. And so you had to go through one security line, then another, in order to make sure you didn't have anything so you could sit there.
wow. You had to
Yeah.
buy seats?
Yeah, I mean they're specifically at the finish line so you can watch people cross it. They're not, well, back then they weren't that expensive, but I thought it'd be nice for them to be there since it was my first marathon.
Totally. Is that the same at Boston? Do you have to buy seats now?
No, those are. It was weird because last year I got 2 of them for free because of my donations with my charity, but they're not like at the finish line. They're like far back. It's really weird. The ones that are at the finish line, I think, are only for designated guests.
Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
That is so interesting. Well, New York as your first marathon is pretty incredible. Were people like telling you, "Hey, that's a really hard one to start with"? Because that's what I think.
No,
No,
no one said anything to me about that.
you're like, "Hey,
I didn't even think about it. I was just, I'm gonna do New York, and I didn't even think about the elevation. I didn't think about all the bridges, and
oh my gosh, yeah."
yeah.
Well, at least you'd been in Central Park. Did you run in the hilly parts of Central Park?
Oh yeah, I
That's
hate
good.
Harlem Hill. Harlem Hill in the back is my arch nemesis.
And is that on the marathon course?
Thank God, not anymore. No,
Okay.
when it first started, it was, but not anymore. Thank
Okay.
God.
I feel like I endured that because I remember I didn't know that it was hilly in Central Park. I thought the only hills were the bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody said to me, "Oh, just make sure you're ready for Central Park." I was like, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Oh, it's really hilly." I'm glad somebody told me because
Yeah.
did not realize that because I'd run in Central Park where it's flat. So I had
Yep.
no idea that there, I mean, it's so big. Like I had
Mm-hmm.
no idea there were hills there. So what a race. So you finished New York as your first. Like that is really impressive. And you got to do it on the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
That's pretty special. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how do you top that? Well, tell us the story.
Well, my uncle's wife passed away, I want to say over the summer of 2021. And so we were trying to find some way to honor her. And her and my uncle, after they retired, they moved to Florida and they worked at Disney World. And so my wife came up with the idea, why don't you run the Disney Marathon for them? And I was like, okay, great. When is it? It was January of 2022. So 2 months after New York. I ran that race. I hated it. I think that was probably the one marathon that I did not like. And it's whenever I tell anybody that, they're like, what do you mean? It was Disney. And it was awesome running through Magic Kingdom, running underneath Cinderella's castle, but a couple things. One, they let people into the park, like the spectators, they let them into the park at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I got to see my wife, which was awesome. But then they kicked them out, and then you don't get a ticket to get in if you run the race, which for the amount of money you're paying, I just don't understand that. But then 75, not even, probably like 85% of the race is on highways because you're running in between the parks. And because it was like COVID time, they're supposed to have characters along the way. There were characters, but there weren't like that many, or the ones that they had were not like I don't important, I guess you
Like
could
they were
say.
obscure characters.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
could totally picture what you're saying.
And I got to mile 20 and I accidentally ended my run. So that made me mad. And then I started to see like out and backs of people going on the highway and then coming back. And I was like, I have to do that too. I don't want to do this. And so I was like, I was like talking to my wife. I was like, I hate this so much. I don't want to do this. I think I just want to leave. Finished it for my aunt. And, to this day, it was my slowest marathon time because I walked a lot. But in right after New York, actually, I applied to the lottery for Berlin just for the heck of it. I was like, I've never traveled outside of the country I've never been to Europe. I've never done anything like that. So I was like, I'm not going to get in. There's probably so many people that apply and whatever. I got an email, I think it was in December at like 4 or 5 in the morning. And I remember just like rolling over, checking my phone and seeing that. And I jumped out of bed and I yelled to my wife. She's like, what happened? What happened? I said, I just got into the Berlin Marathon. So we are going to Europe next year. And she was like, what? So that was actually the moment that kicked off my 6 star journey because I was like, New York was great. It was like kind of my intro into marathoning, but I was like, you know what? Berlin is going to be the one that starts everything. And I started to really do a lot of research with running. I started to understand the different technology that you can use, the different types of fueling, how to balance out your diet during a marathon so you don't hit a wall,
Mm.
and finding the shoes that really work for me. And it was a lot of training. And then I decided also that for some reason that I was also going to run Chicago, which was
Because why not?
why not? And it was 2 weeks after Berlin.
Oh my God.
Um,
Yeah. You
and I
crazy
got in,
people.
I got into that with a charity. And so I did that. And then at the same time, I had qualified in 2021 for the New York City Marathon in 2022. So I was running Chicago, Berlin, New York. And so that took up all of my training for the year. And it was,
Wait. Okay. So you did all of those back to back to back
yeah,
in 22, then it would have been, or is that? Yeah.
22. I was also supposed to run Philly, which was a week after New York. But then when I
Uh-huh.
finished New York, I was like, I'm going to defer. I'm good.
I think that's the smart choice, Mike.
Yeah.
Way
Yeah.
to go.
Yeah. But it was great. Berlin, I had set out with a goal, like, because I finished New York with 4:27. I was like, you know what? I want to break 4 hours. I think I can do it if I train properly. I don't like, we'll see what happens. And Berlin, I'm still so mad about this. I finished in 4 hours flat.
No.
I was so
Like
mad.
0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Yep. It was like
Ugh.
4 hours and like it was literally 4 hours and like 7 milliseconds.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
really annoying. I would be
Yeah.
pissed too. I'm
I was
sorry.
so mad. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And then I passed out when I finished Berlin because
Oh,
I was so dehydrated because I still didn't understand the proper fueling during a marathon. And and it was fine. I think out of all the world marathon majors, Berlin is probably my least favorite because it just felt like the spectators felt forced to be there. They weren't like the energy that you get I mean, maybe it's because New York was my first one, but like the
I
energy in New York
mean,
is like no other marathon. Like
yeah.
it's crazy. And Berlin I think was a little bit more was relaxed.
I picture Germany and like German culture. Like, no offense to Germans. I mean, clearly my last name is Brettnacher. So it's like, but just the stoicism of Germans and the more serious and like that's what I kind of picture
Yeah.
when you describe that. And it's like
Yeah,
just
that's
not
what I
nearly the same thing as.
Yeah, that's what I felt too. And luckily we made a trip out of it, so we spent like 4 or 5 days in Paris, and then we went back home. Chicago was a struggle. I ended up with some ankle problems at like mile 20 and had to walk around the rest of it, but I finished. I met a really great guy while I was running that I paced with named Mario, and I remember seeing him and I was like, that man has incredible running form. I ran up next to him. I said, "You mind if I pace with you?" And we just like chatted the whole time while we were running. Our goal was for both of us was to break 4 hours. I don't think either of us did, but it was still great to, be able to just have like an instant connection with some random person that you're running next to. You're both struggling. You're both
Hmm.
doing this thing that is really difficult, and you're both having a good time together. And then New York in 2022 was just like awful because it was like 80 degrees, 75
Oh, that's
degrees.
right. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They ran out of cups, they ran out of water, and I decided actually that race, that was probably my only race so far where I was like, I'm not going to try to PR. I'm not going to try to do anything special. I'm going to have fun. So I was like taking pictures of people. I was dancing with people. It was a lot of fun because I get pretty serious during my marathons because I'm like, I
Yeah.
get in the zone. But that one,
Same.
I decided to take it easy because I was like, I don't want to end up in the hospital. I'm good.
Right. I don't want to pass out at the end. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they take you to the hospital in Germany or did they just get you in the med tent and you were fine?
Put me in the med tent, and then like 15 minutes later, like, okay, you're good to go.
Jeez, Mike, your health. This is like crazy. Good.
Chicago was awesome. I like the crowds in Chicago are very much like New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Chicago, I've done the most out of all the marathons I've done because we're about 3 hours south in Indianapolis of Chicago. So it's very accessible for us. I did it before there was a lottery. I think the last time I did it was in 2014 and that was a lottery and I got in somehow. I don't know. But ever since then, no dice. So maybe someday again. But yeah. So Chicago. Okay. So what order? So it was Chicago, Berlin, New York.
Yep.
Okay. Chicago, Berlin, New York. Did you work with a coach or anything like that at this point? Do you work with a coach now?
No, I used an app. I don't remember what. I think it was the Run with Hal app. It kind of worked, but didn't. Now I use Runna. And
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
listen, Runna, if you want to sponsor me, like I've broken all my PRs with you guys. I run it for 4 marathons, and it's phenomenal. I cannot like express how awesome Runna is. I used it before it got really big. Like I used it like 3 years ago when it first started out, and
Interesting.
it was awesome.
Are they based in New York?
No, they're based in London.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and they just got bought by Strava actually.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. My previous life, I'll say, was in technology. It was in software. So that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense. When you just think about how AI is going to play into a lot of that with all the data that it has on you and how
Yeah.
it could, I still think for me personally, having a person to hold me accountable helps, but you have a community to hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And certainly your own motivation. So, okay, that's cool. That's a heck of a testament. I think Runna should sponsor you. So for what that's worth, which is nothing really, but gotta put it out there.
Exactly.
Otherwise it'll never happen.
Exactly.
So yeah, maybe I could get them to sponsor this podcast. That would be cool. This episode is brought to you by Runna. Just kidding. Wouldn't that be cool? If anyone knows anyone. This episode is brought to you by my very own small business, Athlete Bouquets, gifts for runners. If you want to celebrate the runner in your life, look no further than athletebouquets.com. You can use code PODCAST for 10% off your order. athletebouquets.com. Back to the show. So, yeah, maybe I could get them to sponsor this podcast. That would be cool. So, so then that was 22.
Mm-hmm.
Did you run marathons in 2023?
Yeah, I did London in 23.
Okay.
And then I did New York again. London was great. I've ran into ankle issues again, but that was primarily because it had just rained and it was pretty slippery on the roads. And then in London, it's very different from the other marathons in that they don't give you cups; they give you bottles of water. And so people will drink the bottles or drink some of it and then throw them on the ground. And so the ground is just covered in bottles. And if you read about people who run the London Marathon, there are so many people who will step on one and slip and roll their ankle or break their ankle, and they'll have to call it quits. But I think it was like mile 13, I like landed the wrong way, and my ankle went to the side, and so I was like, okay, we're gonna calm down. But the crowds were incredible. I still can't believe that there were so many people out after it just rained. So I was blown away by that, and it was a really nice like scenic route. So you got to run like over Tower Bridge. You got to see obviously Big Ben, the Eye. You run by Buckingham Palace, and it was really cool. It was really cool. I really liked it. We were in London for about a week, and got to experience it while we were over there. And then I kind of try to make it. It's like my habit now, doing New York every year. So
I was gonna say it's kind of been a streak, so now you kind of have to.
yeah, my goal is to get up to. If you run 15 of them, then you don't have to qualify anymore. You just get in.
That was going to be my next question because I know Chicago, I think it's like 10
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 15. So, I mean, you're on your way.
I'm like a third of the way there almost.
Yeah. That's wild. And for New York, this is, I guess, aside. Let's go. But how do you get to the start? Are you a bus? Are you a ferry? Have you done both?
No, I get a hotel.
Oh,
So the first year we got a hotel in Staten Island, and then after that, I guess everybody else figured out you could do that. So they've always been sold out. So what we do is we stay outside in Jersey, and in the past, what we've done is I'll Uber to the start line. It's not that much money, but what we found now is it's a lot easier for us to drive to the starting line area, drop me off, and then my wife will drive back and take a train into the city and go do whatever she wants to do, and then go to the finish line.
wow. Okay. Yeah, mine was a nightmare. We stayed in Long Island City in a hotel.
Oh,
First hotel we had booked. I'm like getting ready to get on the airplane with my friend, and I'm reading the reviews of this hotel, Mike. And the first review that was like a month ago was like bed bugs,
oh,
which I'm like, I'm not from New York City, so I think that's somewhat normal. I don't know, but that's really gross. And I said,
yeah.
I'm not staying there the night before a marathon. Like, what if we get bed bugs?
No, absolutely not.
So yeah, thankfully my friend Ashley, she is like the problem solver, and she crushed it. She she was on the phone with somebody for hours, and we got a different hotel anyway. But I say this because it was just like we had to I think we walked to the train, took a train to the bus, took the bus to the start. And it was the whole thing to get there took me longer than it took me to run, which is crazy to think about. So that's nice that you at least know how to do it to make that a much easier process, because it's a lot.
I didn't want to have to deal with all that, and when I volunteer now, my thing that I do is I hand out bibs at the expo for everybody, and I always see at the bottom of the bib it tells them like what mode of transportation is,
Yeah.
and I see the times, and I'm like, I'm not a morning person. I'm not going to be ready to go on a bus at 5 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and if I am, I'm going to be so cranky.
Yeah. Yeah. It was rough. And then you sit on Staten Island for hours.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So I remember I packed myself a peanut butter and banana sandwich. I had magazines, which I did not read, but somebody told me to bring some. So I was like, okay, if I'm just going to be sitting here. But yeah, it was all part of the experience though. And it was a really cool experience. London, you mentioned the plastic bottles. I also heard that in Berlin, they have plastic cups. Is that true?
I think when I did it may have been paper cups. I honestly don't remember.
Somebody told me, maybe it was last year. I don't know. The years all blur together now, but somebody told me, and that stuck with me because I was like, how would I drink? Like, you go from like always having paper cups that you fold and drink. It's like, how the heck would I drink out of a plastic cup and then not trip over them, to your point? I have not heard that about London until you just told me. So that's...
I talked to one of my followers last week who ran London, and he told me about how he saw people go down, and he's actually a physician, so he was like, he was dying himself because it was so hot, but he was also checking on people to make sure they were okay at the same time.
Yeah, that'd be hard to turn that off when you're running through strangers who might need help.
Yeah.
And how was training? Because that was your first spring marathon, right? At that point?
Yeah.
So how was training in the winter for you?
Not great. I've discovered that training for spring marathons is a lot of treadmill running.
Yeah. I was going to say with your, how do you say it? Raynaud's or Raynaud's or
Raynaud's, yeah.
Raynaud's. I've heard that some people deal with that while they're training for marathons. Because I've actually thought I've had it before, but anyway, yeah. Well, what's your furthest run on a treadmill?
I don't know if I've done 20 miles, but I think I've done at least 15.
Yeah, that's so much. How do you do that? I mean, I've done pretty far, but
yeah, it's a lot of music. Luckily now I have a Peloton tread, so what I'll do a lot is I'll stack a bunch of classes on top of each other and do things like that. I don't really pay attention to them because I'm listening to my music, but it's nice to have like something I could look at potentially to kind of get my mind out of the...
You don't watch Netflix? Because that's what I do. I watch movies.
I've done it sometimes. I don't think my mind is able to focus is the issue.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. And then, we have to talk. I'm glad you mentioned Peloton because we do need to talk about that as well.
Absolutely.
When appropriate. But let's finish the 6-star journey while we're there. So London 23, did you run, and then New York in 23. What else in 23? Any other races?
I just did a bunch of New York City. There's the New York Road Runner races, I think I did in 23. Did I do the Brooklyn half? No, I did not because I missed signing up for it. I think I did the United half. I did the Queens 10K. I did a bunch of 4 milers that they had, stuff like that.
Now, if somebody is interested in doing a race in New York outside of the marathon, which race has been a favorite for you?
I would say the races that they do in Central Park are a lot of them have the same exact course, but the energy is different depending on the race that you do. I really
Mm.
like there's the Pride Run that they do in June, and then there's also I think it's around the same time they do an Achilles run for the Achilles Foundation for those
Mm.
individuals that are runners that have some sort of disability, and to see so many of those runners there, persevering and pushing through because they're running over hills. You see people on hand cycles, blind runners, things like that, really pushing to get to that finish line. And there's a medal at the end, which is great. I like those two. The Queen's 10K is really nice because it's flat. The only
Mm.
thing that's not great about it is that there's no shade covering, so it gets really hot. I don't want to say the Brooklyn half because it is relatively boring because you run around Central Park and then I want to say for the last 6-ish miles, it's just straight down to Coney Island on a highway. So
Oh,
there are people there and crowds, but there's no scenery or anything like that. The
okay.
United half is cool because you run over the Manhattan Bridge. This year was the Brooklyn Bridge, and you run through Central Park. But there's a good like 4 miles, no, not even, probably 5 or 6 that are just on the FDR highway, and so
Okay.
they don't allow crowds on there, so there's nobody. And then Times Square is pretty cool because it's just packed full of people, and then you finish in Central Park. Actually, my favorite race is the Abbott 5K Dash to the Finish, which is the day before the New York City Marathon.
Oh,
You start at the UN building, you run up to Sixth Avenue, and then you run to Central Park, and then you cross the New York City Marathon finish line. So they have the whole thing set up, so you see like the finish time,
yeah.
and everything up there. You see the bleachers, you see all the flags. It's really, really cool. And it like, especially if you don't get to run the New York City Marathon, it gives you that feeling when you get
Right.
to the end of like you're crossing it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Are any of these are they hard to get into? I feel like the United half and the Brooklyn half have become so popular as running has just continued to become more popular. Are they like you have to sign up the day it opens? Is it a lottery? How?
So both of them have a lottery, but there's different ways you can get in. So you can't just like forthright sign up for it now. The only people who can are who like meet a couple different criteria. So obviously you can qualify, but the United have they if you live in New York City or in the New York around the New York area, they have races in each borough, and if you do 4 of them, then you get entry into the next year's race. They also have a virtual one that you can do where if you do that, then you get entry into the next year.
Okay.
Brooklyn, Brooklyn's easier for people who are not from New York because it's based off of virtual races. So I think they do 8 during the year. If you do 6 of them, then you get entry into the following year.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So
Yeah,
like for somebody like me, that would be a lot
yeah,
more doable.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You just do it. It syncs to Strava, and then it just counts it.
Okay. Well, that's neat. Okay. Yeah, because I love the idea of doing one of those, but then from the outside looking in, it just looks so hard to get in anymore
Yeah,
to
yeah,
anything, really.
yeah. I mean, the easiest way for the United half is just do the virtual
Yeah.
half
Yeah.
marathon, but they do sell out very quickly now. It's a nightmare. New York Road Runners needs to fix or do something with their races because they go on sale at like noon on the day that they go on sale, and then they're all pretty much sold out by like 4 p.m. And it's just like ridiculous how quickly they sell out. And the only way to really get into them without having to worry about it is to pay for an upgraded membership that lets you register earlier, which is what I
Right.
have because I missed all of the races for April, May, and June because they sold out, which makes me mad because now I have to do all the races in the summer.
Right. Ugh. Yeah. That's wild. It's so good for the sport that people want to do it, but it's
Yeah,
also just kind of infuriating because you're like, I want to do it.
exactly.
Yeah. So, did you say you did London for charity?
Yes,
Okay.
I've done Chicago, Boston, London, and Tokyo with charities.
Wow. Good for you. That's incredible. So, which year? So London, New York in 23. And then did you do Tokyo and Boston this year?
24, yeah.
24.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what is today? Yeah, it's 2025. Okay, so you did both of those last year.
Mhm.
And how were those experiences?
Tokyo was incredible. I've always wanted to go to Tokyo, and so when I got in with my charity, I like freaked out because I just think about the fact that running has taken me all over the world and just don't know how I would have been able to travel to these places if I had not been running. And so when we got there, I was like a kid in a candy store. Like it was Tokyo is by far my favorite city in the world. Like I always joke with people like I would move there in a heartbeat if given the option. And the Tokyo Marathon was fantastic. You always hear about people saying that the crowds are quieter and not as like loud as what you would get from like New York and Chicago, but what they lack in that per se, which it's still loud, but what they lack in that is more of it feels like a genuine want to be there and that they want you to succeed. Even the volunteers are clapping for you. Like they'll be off in the corner just clapping, like cheering you on and making sure that you're okay. It was perfect weather, and that was actually the first marathon that I broke 4 hours. I got officially it was 3:48. Actually,
Yeah, I was
my,
looking.
my watch says 3:43, so I went with that. But it was a really really tremendous moment for me because I remember crossing the finish line, and I've never had this happen before. I burst into tears. I just started sobbing, and this runner turned to me and just gave me a big hug, and
Oh,
it was great. And I had so much fun during it. It was beautiful, and all my races, all my marathons, I make it a goal to find my wife wherever she is. We call each other, we find out what the logistics are, what she's by, where I can look for her, and I always blow her a kiss. And so I was
oh.
happy that I was able to see her with this because she wasn't there's no like bleachers or any finish line area, like I had to look for her, and so that was awesome. And we were there for like almost 2 weeks.
Does she wear something special or like have a special sign?
No, we're trying to figure out what she's gonna wear like in the future.
Right, it's like neon. I don't know. What's
I
like the
need her to wear
most?
something bright. I need
Yeah,
something bright because I
yeah.
missed her in 2023. I missed her because I couldn't find her in the bleachers, and so she has a video of me running, and I'm like this the whole time,
Like, where are you? Did you should
like
just be
looking
like blowing? You
around.
should just be like blowing kisses everywhere. Like, I don't know where you
That's what
are,
I
but
should have
like,
done. That's what I
maybe
should
you
have
could see this. Yeah, I mean, but in that moment, you're like, where are you? Where am
done.
I?
Exactly.
Like, that's a tough.
Seriously,
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
life?
yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, Tokyo, I think Tokyo is really far up there as one of my favorite
Mm.
marathons. And then I did Boston in April, a month later, and Boston was great. The people were incredible. The course was deadly. And those Newton Hills are no joke. I remember telling myself, "You're going to run up Heartbreak Hill, and you're going to be really proud of yourself." And I didn't even know that I was on Heartbreak Hill until I saw the sign that says "You have crested Heartbreak Hill," and I was like, "Oh, I walked it." But crossing that finish line, like even to this day, like I don't feel like it was real. Like I have my medal somewhere in this room, but I just like I don't know, it feels like it didn't happen in a sense. And I remember crying and just being really, really proud of the fact that I was able to do this. And it was kind of sad because, you like I worked for 3 years
Right.
to get to this, and now that I accomplished it, I was like, what do I do now? Like who do
Yes.
like
Yeah,
what's
that's
the next
hard.
goal? Like do I try to run a marathon in every state in the country? I don't know, do I try to run one in every continent?
Yeah. Right.
And
Totally.
I decided that I'm gonna do it again.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'd already done New York, so New York I already had 1 star again.
Yeah.
And so I did Tokyo and Boston this year, so that's 3 stars
That's
there.
why I got confused. Okay. Because I was
And
like,
then
didn't you do it
yeah.
this year? But you did it again.
Yeah, I
Mike.
wasn't going to do Tokyo. I wasn't going to do Tokyo, but then I got an email from them over the summer, my charity, and they were like, "We're looking forward to your application." And I was like, "Well," I asked my wife, I was like, "Do you think I should do it?" She was like, I wouldn't say no if you got in because before when we went last year, she was like, "I don't really want to go to Tokyo. Like, I don't have any inkling to." And then we got there, and after like the first day, she was like, "I love it here. It's
Yeah.
incredible." And then I got in and, I was really happy with that. And then Boston was nothing. I wasn't going to run Boston, but I got offered to run Boston with Shocks. And so I found out while I was in Tokyo. So like
Oh
a
my
month,
gosh.
a month before the marathon, I found out that I was going to do it. And so that was awesome. And then I have New York and Chicago at the end of the year.
Wow.
So that'll be 4 stars.
Jeez. And that leaves Berlin and
And
Chicago,
London.
or in London, sorry. Yeah. So, okay, I forget. I like have to try to remember when all the windows are open for like registering or like putting your name in the hat. Have you already applied? Okay.
London just passed, and
Okay.
Berlin is I think it's in like September, October.
Okay. Because it's around the time of the race.
Yeah.
Ish. Okay. It's hard. I can't keep track. And I don't even remember. There's some I think I put in for London. Maybe. I forget. Like I literally sometimes on a whim, I'll just be like, I should just see. And then, it's a good excuse if you get in, be like, I need to go now because it's really hard to get in. That's what my brother-in-law did last year. He got into London and Berlin. So they did both, which is, he only did London and Boston, I think, because, yeah. Anyway, I would love to do them all. I would love to. We'll see. I've got Chicago and New York. I would love to qualify for Boston. I'm almost 40. So I'm kind of like waiting for that so that I can just get a little bit more leeway. Yeah. But I'm also afraid that if I wait too long, they're just going to keep making it harder.
Change the times again.
It's like, I don't know. So I just tell people I'm chasing my best, and if that gets me to Boston, that's great because that's what I would love to do. But if not, then hopefully I still achieve the best that I possibly can.
Yep.
And you've also said that you are chasing a sub 3-hour marathon, which is amazing to think that you could even like backtrack a few years. You were like, I hope I can run for 20 minutes on a treadmill. And now you're like, I could perhaps do under 3 hours.
Yeah, I never thought that 3 hours, a sub 3 would ever be possible for me. Sub 4 was just like something that always was out of reach. It was like there, but just like out of my grasp just a little bit. And then, so last year when I did Tokyo was 3:48, and then I did New York last year and I did 3:11.
Which is just nuts. That's nuts in New York.
I don't know what happened. Like I got to mile 17 and I felt really good, and I have 2 running playlists. One is just literally it's called Running Music and Shit, and then the other one is called Fast as Fuck Boy. And so I got to mile 17 and I texted my wife. I said, other running playlist is coming out now. And I like those last 9 miles, I just like went for it. And my training at Runna told me you'll finish the marathon in 3 hours and 25 minutes. And I beat that by 14 minutes. And I just the picture of me crossing the finish line, I was screaming because I was like, yes. But after that, I was like, maybe I could break 3 hours. Me and my best friend Chris are making it a goal to try to break 3 hours this year. And we are a little bit competitive. He had run the Warsaw Marathon either a week before or 2 weeks before the New York City Marathon, and he hit 3:20 something. We wanted to break 3:30, and he hit under 3:30, and I was like, oh crap, now I have to do that. And so I hit 3:11. He just ran the Barcelona Marathon and hit 3:08. So
ooh, look at you guys going back and forth.
Yeah, so now I had to figure out what's going on with that because I did Tokyo and I did Boston this year and I finished in 3:13 and 3:14. So 5 months now, 4 months.
Oh yeah, plenty of time
to get this. And my goal was either Chicago or New York to break the 3-hour marathon.
Okay.
Chicago obviously would be easier because it's flat, but like it would mean a lot more to me if it was New York, just because my first marathon, it would be my 5th time running it.
Yeah.
And that is the one course, like surprisingly, I feel like I have down because I've been able to break it down so much in my mind and understand like each portion of it so well so that I don't feel, really surprised by any portion of it.
Right.
But
yeah, that's helpful.
A sub 3 marathon just never in my mind seemed possible. And then last year happened and I was like, oh, maybe this is.
Yeah. And to think you weren't an athlete growing up.
No one in my family. I mean, my brother plays golf, but no one in my family does it. I mean, my grandma bowled and she was in the Hall of Fame for getting a 300, but that was
wow.
it. That was
That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
That's so cool.
my grandma's a badass.
Yeah.
But like I played little league soccer for a season. I played little league baseball, and as my mom likes to say, when I was in outfield and I would play with the grass,
Right.
it was like I never did track and field. I never ran, and somehow this has happened.
It's just amazing. I want to talk to you a little bit about the rundown
Hmm.
that you're starting in talking to everyday runners and just chatting. I loved what you put together after Tokyo of like just chatting with a few people, asking the same questions, putting it all together. Like it was really cool. And so what made you do it?
It was really those first interviews. I just thought about just talking to runners of all backgrounds and just seeing what their experiences were like. Because I was really blown away by the fact that like I think I did 6 people, and every single one of them had a different experience. I had people that DNF'd. I had people that did really well. I had people that really struggled. People who ran their first marathon, first international marathon, and being able to hear their stories and understanding their own grit and their perseverance was really
Mm-hmm.
inspiring to me. And I feel like we are, the running community as a whole really likes to put a voice and an emphasis on people that are like elites or
Sure.
semi-elite or really fast, and not those individuals that are just like the everyday runner, the average person who likes to lace up their shoes and go out there and pound the pavement or the trails and have fun. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of the people that we see that are, the big voices in the running community are the people who I don't think that it's necessarily super fun for them anymore. I think it's just become more of a job and more of a have to rather than a want to. And being able to talk to people who want to do this and aren't necessarily chasing big extravagant goals. They're just like, I want to go out there and have fun. I want to push myself. It is something that I think my goal is to inspire other runners or other people who are thinking of getting into running, who are like,
Yeah.
I want to run, but I can't run a 6 minute mile. I can barely run a 15-minute mile, and
Right.
people are going to judge me, and they're not going to think that I'm a runner, and I'm just going to feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think hearing the stories of people that are in their shoes or have gone through what they're going through from the beginning, and that's one thing that I always try to do on my social media profiles is I always go back to where I started from, because those people that are at day zero, I know what it was like. And it was a struggle. Like, people like to think that runners like what they do from the get-go. And like, I'm
Right.
going to say
Mm.
that like I hated it, but I knew I needed to stick it out in order to get to where I wanted to be. And so that's really what I want to do with this. I'm really excited. I've got a couple interviews I've already done that I have to edit. I just have to stop being lazy. And
Yeah,
then
it's hard. It's editing is hard work.
yeah, and I've had a couple people already reach out to me saying that they wanted to do one as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so great. I relate to it a ton, obviously, given what I have been doing the last couple years. I remember just thinking like when I would drive around, just like seeing people running that I didn't know. And I'm just like, I wonder why they run. I wonder if they're just like running their normal 4 mile loop that they do every day,
Yep.
or if they like just run for a few minutes, if they, just like, are they training for something or do they just run around? I don't
Yeah.
know. And so just kind of the curiosity of like, what are all these people doing? And
Yeah.
you can, like when you're in New York and there's 50,000 people and you're looking around and you're like, how did all these people get here? Like,
Yeah.
what did that one person like have to do to get to New York or to get the 6 stars? I mean, it's
Hmm.
just really interesting to hear people's stories because we're all so different,
Yep.
even though we all share a love of something that's the same. So, yeah, I think it's really cool that you're starting to do that. And yeah, I can't wait to follow along.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And then, okay, one more thing before I ask you the end of podcast questions is
Yeah.
one of the things that drew me to you was that you have in your profile the Anti-Matt Choi, who, if people do not know who that is, maybe you should just briefly mention who he is and then why you say that.
Yeah, so Matt Choi is a running influencer. He's become rather big in the running community over the last couple years for his racing, but I think what he's gotten most famous for over the last couple years are his antics while running these races. He seems to like to record himself during every single workout and run that he does and race. He's
Mm-hmm.
gotten in trouble multiple times during many marathons for his brothers using e-bikes to record him while he's running a marathon with 20 to 50,000 people, which is very dangerous.
So
And
dangerous.
and not acknowledging those the issues that come up with that. I mean, he got disqualified from, I think, the Houston Marathon for using someone else's bib. He's been warned. I think it was Berlin. He definitely got warned in Chicago. But then New York City last year, a lot of people reported him. I think I also reported him. I don't remember about him using e-bikes during that race. And people pointed out that they got clipped by the e-bike. You know, it not only puts the runners at risk, but it puts the spectators at risk as well. And
Yeah.
he is now banned from every single New York Roadrunner race.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I say anti-Matt Choi, I'm really talking about someone who runs for themselves. Like, I feel like the running influencers are running for other people so that they can get this kind of gratitude and what's the word?
Notoriety.
Yes, notoriety from their running that normal, everyday, average person who is not recording their runs, who is just going out there and, you know, maybe posting a picture, but like they're just going out there and nobody sees like the quiet work that they do in order to get where they want to be. Like, I always tell people, I don't record myself doing runs. I used to, like, I used to bring a GoPro with me, but I realized I never used it because I would be so focused on the task at hand that I didn't see a reason to record myself because I wanted to focus on that more than just like getting good footage.
Right.
And
Right.
and I want to be the like I don't want to like bash him, but like I found him like several years ago, and I've always thought that he's really pompous about what he does with his running, and I want to be kind of the person who is more of a down to earth, personable runner who can really inspire those people that are getting started with their running, or people who are, you know, not those semi elites, not those people that run super
Hmm.
fast. Obviously, I've gotten faster over the years, but like I said, I still remember when I was running 12, 13-minute miles.
Yeah.
And so I want to be that runner who is inspirational to just average everyday people,
Yeah.
and someone who doesn't go out there to try to make a name for themselves by recording and really putting on this persona that is not genuine. I really don't like, is it disingenuous or ingenuous? I think it's
I think disingenuous is the
yeah.
right word.
I
Yeah.
really don't like disingenuous people. I can
Oh,
very easily point them out when I hear it and when I see it. And so when I post footage, when I make content, like, it's like, this is me. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Like, this is what I do, and this is how I talk, this is how I act, and I'm not trying to put up some sort of like mask of a
right.
character. And that's what I feel like a lot of these running influencers do, and something that I feel like Matt Choi does. And so I want to make sure that runners know that, you know, whatever advice or support or care that they need from me as I hate calling myself an influencer, because the only thing that I want to influence you to do is go out and run.
Right. I know it's really funny. And even as small as I am, I've been called the same. And why does it feel like it's a negative thing? Because it
Yeah,
really shouldn't be. Like, you're just influencing people to do what's good for themselves, you know?
exactly.
But yeah, yeah, I understand that.
And that's really what I'm trying to do. And so when I say anti-Matt Choi, that's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I respect that a lot. I stopped following him. I mean, I was following him for a while, almost just to, like, because I couldn't look away, kind of a deal. But then I was like, okay. After New York last year, I was like, no, I'm not. I just am out. I'm out. No
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. I remember several years ago when I first met him, he was like running a marathon and he would just like yell into his GoPro like mile 1, 5:54.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God.
like, bro, you need to calm down. Like,
Yeah,
it's not that,
man.
like, it's not
Mm,
that serious. Like,
yeah.
unless you're at the Olympics or unless you're Connor Mance, like,
Right.
like, relax.
Yeah. I don't know. Go for it, man. It's like whatever, but like, just don't bring the e-bikes. Like, don't hurt people. Like, that is where the line really needs to be drawn.
Yeah.
It's like,
Drop
do
the
what,
e-bikes
you
and
know.
drop the ego.
Yeah,
Drop the
yeah,
ego.
yeah, man. Okay. Well, it's time for the two end of the podcast questions that I ask everybody.
All right.
And I'm really excited about the first one now that you have named your playlist Running Music and Shit. That's great. So now the first question is your favorite running mantra and or song. So give us some songs from the playlist, and then do you have a mantra that you use?
I do. Actually, let me look at my phone because there's a couple. So my running playlists are really weird. So I actually grew up listening to video game music.
Oh,
And so I have several of those songs that are just like really bombastic, like orchestral, like in your face. that make you feel like you're in like a video game boss battle.
Wow.
That really come at me. There's one called Find the Flame that I like. There's a song from what's it, Into the Spider-Verse, What's Up Danger, which is, where he jumps off. That's a good one. Run It, which is from, what's it, Shang-Chi, the Marvel movie with Simu Liu.
I'm bad.
I forget what it's called. That one. What else do I have here? I have a couple Taylor Swifts. I got Vigilante Shit, obviously.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
That one makes me want to fight people. Got a couple Chappell Roan songs.
Okay.
What is it? Super Graphic Ultra Modern Girl is like a bop. So like,
I don't know that.
I remember running down the Queensboro Bridge last year, and I literally was just singing it out loud, like as it was coming on. And I was dancing. I was like, I don't care what anyone thinks right now. I'm just having a ball. And then Red Wine Supernova is a good one.
Ooh, yeah.
And what is it? Oh, Ready for It by Taylor Swift. That right there. I just think about her Eras Tour entrance for that, and I feel invincible when I hear that song.
That's so funny. Yeah. And you have kids, right, Mike?
No, my wife and I are actually in the process of doing IVF.
Okay. I was thinking I saw, do you have nieces and nephews or any, like I've seen, okay. Because
I have one niece. I do have one nephew, but my niece is like,
okay.
This.
Oh, okay. So you're hoping to become a dad soon. I hope that journey isn't too long. I have not gone through that, but I've known many people who have. And so.
Yeah, it's been over, I guess, a year and a half now.
Jesus.
That we've been doing this.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Well, when you have a daughter, she will appreciate that her dad loves Taylor Swift because,
My wife always says that her and Taylor Swift are best friends. She just doesn't know it yet.
Right. So. Yeah. There you go. And then mantra. Do you have any mantras that you like?
So my favorite one actually is something that I learned from a therapist of mine that has always stuck with me, which is through the uncomfortability comes progress.
Mm-hmm.
That has helped me in every facet of my life, not just running, but, whether it's work, whether it's personal life, everything. That has always gotten me through everything. That if I'm in a run or in a race and I'm in the hurt locker, like if I keep pushing, then, eventually I'll come out of it. No matter how much pain I'm in or how much, exhaustion I have, if I keep pushing. This is what gets me through like the Brooklyn Half last week or the Bronx 10 mile, or not Bronx 10 mile, the Broad Street is just like, yeah, it sucks right now, but like imagine the finish line. Imagine being done. Like you didn't come this far. Another one is you didn't come this far to only come this far.
Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, I feel like Peloton, they say that a lot.
Yes.
What is your Peloton leaderboard name? Mike Runs Marathons?
No,
is
it's
that too long?
Letters.
Yeah, I was wondering.
It's
what is your...
we are resilient.
Okay, we're gonna be friends because living in New York, you've been to the studio, correct?
I went once. Yeah, actually, I run a Peloton group that has about 90,000 members, and so it's called the Positive Peloton Group. I got invited to join this group of what they're called team captains, which is like this new feature that's in the app for you to create a team for your whatever group that you have. And when I went up in April, we went up for the whole day. We did this whole thing, got a tour of everything. We did some market research, and then we did a 60-minute ride. And that was my first time in the studio, and it was so cool. Not only doing that, but I got to meet like a lot of people that, like one of the people that I actually interviewed that for the rundown is someone that I met there, and he also ran Boston. So it was just like such a mixture of worlds. And so I want to go back up and do it again, but I'm pretty sure they sell out very quickly.
I know. I'm so lucky. I've gotten to go to the old studio. So I forget which street it was on, 22nd. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it was 23rd Street, the Flatiron.
23rd. Right? Yeah. And it was awesome. I used to travel there for work. And so I would pick my hotel based on proximity to the studio and then get in. So I've gone a couple times there or a few times, but then I have not been to the new one. So I would love to do that at some point. Who is your favorite instructor or instructors?
I love Alex because he's really motivational, but sometimes you also need someone to just kick your ass.
Yeah, to just scream at you.
Yeah, and I like Susie Chan because she's an ultra marathoner.
She's the best.
And then Mariana I really like because she's super chill.
Yeah, those are good ones. I love Susie Chan. Her book is incredible if you haven't read it.
Yes.
Loved it. Loved her book. And I just think she's like, yeah, just keep running. And that's how you do it. And you're like,
Exactly.
okay, Susie, that's what I'll do. Okay. And then next finish line or milestone we've talked about already, that you are going to be running Chicago and New York this fall. And Philly. Okay. I missed that one.
Yeah.
So will that be your first marathon outside of the majors?
No, I did Philly in 2023.
Okay.
It was a big
that's right.
struggle. It was a big struggle. I got IT band issues at like mile 18. So I'm hoping now with the strength that I have now in my legs and the training that I've done, that I won't have that issue this time.
Yeah. Philly's the only marathon that I have technically DNF'd, because I did it when they had the half and the full on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just like peel off and finish the half. I was super sick because I did Chicago that year. And I had no business running even a half marathon that day. I was such an idiot, but I was just like, no, I'm stubborn. I'm here in Philly. I'm going to do this. I was with all my, my girlfriends that were all running. And so that was sad. I have a little bit of like, maybe I should do that sometime as like redemption, like go back and run it. But I also need to figure out how to get you to come to Indianapolis, because if you're chasing that sub 3, like we are so flat and fast, so flat and fast. I mean, I forget, I should know the stat off the top of my head. I'm on our board of directors, but it's like the number of Boston qualifiers or Olympic trial qualifiers for like a non-net downhill course. Like we have that.
Wow.
Yeah. Notification. Jesus Christ. That notoriety. But we're top 15 marathon in the country, and we were hoping to break top 10 at some point. But yeah, if you've never been here, it's a really well done race. We've been doing it for over 15 years, and obviously I'm a little biased because I live here, but it's really flat. Like it's like Chicago, like no hills to speak of, and it's amazing. So
yeah, send me the info.
Yeah, it's like right before New York though every year. So that's the struggle. It's been on the same weekend before. This year it is, what is it, the 8th of November? Yeah, November 8th this year. And New York is the weekend before. So,
yeah.
If you just want to casually just run another marathon the week after, which is something you can do, I can tell. So, well, thank you so much for doing this. It was a blast. And I told you that 90 minutes would just like fly by.
You were right.
It's just wild to me. Every time I'm like, okay, and it's been 90 minutes. I don't know how, but it has. And it's just been such a pleasure getting a chance to actually sit down and talk to you versus just seeing your content pop up in my feed. So thanks for taking the time to do this. And I appreciate what you're doing for the running community too, and sharing stories of other everyday runners.
I appreciate that. And thank you so much for thinking of me with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to everybody who listened, and happy running. Hey, thanks so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode of Finish Lines and Milestones from Sandy Boy Productions, please share it with your friends, give it a rating and review, and share it with your friends. That's the best way for people to find this show. And I'm going off to spectate for the Run 317 West Clay 3.17 mile race. So hopefully you saw me out there. I was cheering for you. All right. Happy running. Bye.